this meeting might be pretty fast. We don't have a very full agenda for February, but there's a couple new faces around the table. We'll give them a chance to introduce themselves. So Jared, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Jared Begonia. I'm with I'm the consultant for governing board member Catherine Barker, who serves as the new Los Angeles County representative. Not only am I her liaison / consultant for AQMD, I'm also her senior field deputy for the San Fernando Valley, as well as her legislative affairs deputy. So pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Jared. And then familiar face, but different role. So Fred, you want to say a few
I'm Fred
words?
Manassian, a former AQMD employee. I'm a consultant to board member Judith Mitchell, both for here AQMD and the Air Resources Board.
Okay.
Do you know everybody?
Oh,
Or
maybe we
would
should
you
do
like
that.
to have them introduce themselves?
Yeah, why don't we go around?
Tom Gross, consultant to Ben Benoit.
Ron Ketchum, McAllen, Larry McAllen, and San Bernardino.
Bill Glacier, representing Michael Caccioli.
Nancy Velasquez, Governing Board Liaison.
All right, information management, production.
I'm Matt Holder, consultant to new board member Carlos Rodriguez, but I was with Dwight Robinson previously.
Ben Wong with Michael Caccioli.
James Emery with Supervisor Bartlett's office.
Big Gilchrist, General Counsel.
Welcome back, man.
Okay.
And do you want to just say hi real quick, Andy?
I'll get a couple introductions, so introduce yourself.
Andy Silva, consultant for Janice Rutherford.
Okay, we'll jump into the agenda, which is the first item on our agenda. So that's reviewing the agenda for the February 7th board meeting. As usual, we'll jump to the back for the more the non-consent calendar items. We'll see that there's one public hearing on a rule, 1107. And just to help Mike Morris just give a very brief rundown. It's not really controversial, but
So 1107 is our metal coatings rule. US EPA asked us to make some minor changes to it to address reasonably available control technology. And so we've done that. There are two other minor amendments that were asked for stakeholders. One was a transfer efficiency provision, so we included that. The other is a test method from the UVEV Energy Curable group, and we are including that in our definitions, but we are not including that as a test method. During the stationary source, there was a comment about why we don't include that there. Just real briefly, we haven't had any tests in the last 10 years on that, no violations on that. But we can't use it as a field sample method because we need too much information from manufacturers to use it that way. And that concludes my presentation.
that test method issue, some of you are familiar with. It's Rita Loof, and it's every time we do a VOC coding this rule, it comes up. So we're doing in this rule what we've done in the last couple rules is include it in definitions so manufacturers know they can use the method to label their products. It's just not a compliance method. We know it's not a compliance method. It can't be in compliance. There's a commitment to continue to work to try to see if there is a way to make it a compliance method, but it's not. We've had this issue ongoing for some time.
So Rita's not here, so does that mean she's happy? Or
She
okay?
She was happy, I don't know.
But okay.
She testified at the set hearing that she was happy, and then at stationary, she was asking for a little bit more. But, you know, we can't go that far for the reasons we mentioned. It's not a compliance method. And then the main reason we opened the rule is we have federal requirements to have all reasonable available control technology requirements in our basin as a extreme non-attainment area. Most of our rules are stringent enough where we basically set what we've known as RACT for the entire country. They look to us. In some cases, some other districts, EPA, minor little things, they get a little bit ahead of us and we just have to make adjustments. So that's what this is. It has very little impact on regulated facilities. Okay, any questions on 1107? We will then, let's stay on this page, page 6 for the two bigger items there. So item 23 we thought we would come to the board with an update on where we are with all the reclaim transition and the BARC rulemaking. So Susan's going to give a presentation on that. Susan, you just want to give a very brief, like what you're going to cover?
Exactly what Phil said, so provide a primer on a little background information and education on the reclaim program, what it is. For some of we have a number of new board members. And then talk about the rulemaking progress that we've made in the transition, and then looking forward and some of the challenges that we're currently facing in this transition process and our work with EPA and resource review. So just kind of highlighting that.
Any questions for Susan?
So this is really an informational item, not?
Yeah. All right, and then Amir will give our annual status report on our resource review.
So this is the first of the two reports that we prepare every year to demonstrate that our new source review program meets the federal NSR new source review program offsetting requirements for major sources that are exempt from providing offsets under our requirements. This is our preliminary analysis. We will come back with the board in September with our final determination. As long as our balances are in positive, we're in good shape. And the preliminary analysis was for 2018, and it demonstrates that our program is equivalent with the federal requirements.
Any questions for Amir? Okay, and we will go to beginning of the agenda, item 2. So, some swearing in, reappointed and newly appointed board members, the minutes, we haven't seen yet. There's no question on that. Did Matt? Matt's right.
Yeah, so the first budget fiscal impact item is with TAO. So we had recently won a big $45 million award from the California Air Resources Board with Volvo to do their, essentially their battery electric trucks. As part of that award, the data collection was going to be done with CalSTART, and it was going to be through CSERT, so UC Riverside. Turns out UC Riverside's Business Administration Office won't let them subcontract, so all we're doing is we're going to take that same money and we're going to contract directly with CalSTART because CSERT couldn't do it. So there's no fiscal impact, we're just going to execute a contract directly with CalSTART for the collection. No questions on that. The next one is another one for TAO. It's something we bring to the board every year. It's just to renew our annual membership in the California Fuel Cell Partnership. That's a public-private partnership where we're trying to further hydrogen infrastructure and fuel cell vehicles both light duty and medium duty. Do you have an answer for that?
How's that coming along? Because there's more hydrogen
So there
vehicles
are,
out there now.
they're in the thousands now. They're, Phil drives a fuel cell vehicle. A lot of people here drive fuel cells. The biggest issue is fueling interruptions. There's only a few providers like Air Products, Lindy, Mary Key. So once they get disrupted, then it's a huge impact because there's not the supply chain and redundant suppliers. So that happened here last year for a short while where there was fueling interruptions. It happened up in the Bay Area that had been going on. It's currently now back to kind of status quo normal, and so people are now talking about the cars again and not fueling interruptions. So, but it shows you that it's a nascent technology. We still need to incentivize it, and they're up to 68 stations that have been awarded. So the state is on the hook for 100 stations, and the CEC has the funding for that. Once we get to that 100, the partnership is looking at how do we get to an additional 100 to 1,000 stations throughout the state.
Phil, I wanted to go back to the swearing in. I just had a question. So the election for Mike Cacciotti's seat, and he's running for re-election, is scheduled to take place this coming Thursday, on the day before this meeting. Of course, assuming it makes a quorum and he meets the vote requirements, would he be sworn in the following meeting, or can they add that to the agenda? I mean, I don't know that it makes any real difference because he continues to serve if nobody gets otherwise elected.
Yeah, we'd evaluate it.
Okay.
One of either this one or the next one.
Yeah.
Probably the next one.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. So any questions for Matt? More questions for Matt? Yeah, it's really been not an issue of having access to a station, it's having access to a station that actually has hydrogen. There's lots of hydrogen stations, they just don't all have hydrogen all the time.
Okay, so Sujat is actually off-site today, so I'm gonna do item number 4. So this basically does 2 things. The first is that it recognizes up to $20 million from the Air Resources Board for AB 617 implementation. The actual amount is to be determined. The governor has cut the budget way down. There's all these negotiations going, but we expect we'll get at least 20 million, hopefully more. So it recognizes that. And then it's actually a modest, conservative mid-year budget adjustment. It's not as large at all as the previous 2 years. And so it's about $3 million. We're recommending that $1 million be transferred to the infrastructure fund so we can set aside some money for large projects for our aging building, since we're replacing chillers and elevators and other big ticket items, and we'll probably have more of those in the future.
Infrastructure for this building?
For infrastructure for
Okay.
our headquarters building, exactly. And then the other funds, a small amount is that to add 3 positions. We're looking for a financial analyst because we're getting more and more audits and more complicated programs, senior IT specialist, and then a senior public information specialist for public affairs for our EJ and AB 617 related efforts. The remainder of the money is for a variety of things. There's about 16 vehicles that we were needing to purchase. There's about $750,000 or so for some IT projects. And the rest of it is for miscellaneous services and supplies and smaller ticket items. So that's coming to the board for their consideration in February. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
On the 617, do you guys have the resource, because we have 5 communities now, right?
Yes.
We got 2. Do you have the resources you need to?
The short
That's
answer
a
is
lot
no.
of work, and frankly, I worry about your staff.
Us too. As you know, we had $20 million for the last year with the 3 communities, and we probably we did overspend that. We're learning and we're going to be doing some things differently, but the legislature was asked, instead of giving 50 million statewide, to give 100 million, because now there are, instead of 10 last year, there's a total of 13 communities. We have 5 of them. So no, we don't have enough resources. So we're lobbying very hard to get additional money and also a sustained funding stream so that we can be more comfortable hiring people. Because you'll see we're not asking for any more people for AB 617 at this time.
Because you brought on
a
bunch of FTEs
brought in
last year for like
we did.
50 or something?
Yeah, it's a total of 83 between the 2. And it's still, and we pulled some staff from other places, but 83 new positions for AB 617. But with adding 2 new communities and implementing the community emission reduction plans and the ongoing monitoring, it is a significant amount of work.
And the governor only proposed 25 million statewide
Yes.
in his budget for districts to implement. And now we have emission reduction plans that we need to implement. We didn't know what was going to be in there in our original budget estimates. Now we have that in front of us and we can estimate what that's going to cost to implement. And it's well beyond what we've been getting and what he's proposing, obviously. So
There's significant discussions going on about that, and if we don't get more than $20 million or we don't get enough to do it, we'll definitely have to look at what do we have to scale back, which would be really unfortunate because these are great programs and they're really helping the communities and doing some really good things. But
So I don't know when the supervisor's going to. When's your ledge trip? Isn't it usually this time of year? February or March?
I mean,
Sacramento?
for board members or for, I don't know.
Well, Sacramento, there have been staff members in Sacramento constantly.
And next week.
And then DC.
Just
Board members, I don't know.
if the supervisor needs to lend her voice,
Oh, thanks.
Wayne needs to call her.
Okay, I'll let him know. The good news is, in the Capitol building, in the upper floors of the Capitol building, the governor's office is on the bottom floor. that there seems to be a lot of support from the senators and assembly members to add back in the funding that the governor did not include. So,
My boss is up there.
Yeah.
It's not unusual for him to be up there twice a week. So I'll have a chat with him and
Okay.
see if, and I'll talk with supervisor or Mark and see if there's anything we can do to help.
And it's 5 communities plus 2, 7, or what are the total number of
3
communities?
plus 2, so we got 2 this year.
5.
And
So where's
there's
the
more
3
communities that
million
really want to
shortfall
be in,
from?
and if the funding, next year, if the funding doesn't increase, you might be able to manage if the funding doesn't increase this coming year on 5, but if it's more than 5, like, I don't know if we'll be able to add communities.
No, that'd be crazy
Yeah.
for you guys.
Fred, you're asking where are we covering the shortfall? Some of the work that we're doing is work that we would otherwise normally do too, so it is district work to go do air monitoring and work with communities and those kind of things too. So we're just kind of using our general budget, but that's not sustainable for too much longer.
And correct me if I'm wrong, 4 of the 5 or 3 of the 5 are LA County?
3 of the 5 are now LA County.
Okay.
All right, Ron, number 5.
Morning, Ron Moskowitz, Chief Information Officer. This is a standard request that we do every 2 years to approve a list of pre-qualified vendors for computer, network, printer, hardware, and software, and audio-visual equipment. Funds are available in our budget, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Questions for Ron? Okay, Davian, are you handling this one?
I am not Derek Alatorre. Good morning, everyone. My name is Fabian Wesson. I'm Assistant Deputy Executive Officer for Legislative Public Affairs and Media. This item is to appropriate funds and amend the contract for consulting services for South Coast AQMD Environmental Justice Outreach and Initiatives. The current contract with Lee Andrews Group expires on March 29, 2020. This contract includes an option for 2 one-year extensions. The action before you is to appropriate $160,000 from BP ARCO Settlement Project Fund to the Legislative Public Affairs and Media fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and authorize the chairman to execute a one-year extension of the contract with the Andrews Group. Happy to answer any questions.
So that's, they put on the big conference and do like 4 events?
They do four events with EJCP, yes, we do.
And they put on the big conference?
And they help us with the big environmental justice conference that we have.
What is that again? May? Or?
We haven't set the date for this year. We're looking at September 23rd and 24th right now. But we certainly will, prize you a date.
Okay. Now, it's somewhere in the IE would be nice.
We're looking in Riverside.
Okay.
We are. That's one of the venues of the Riverside Convention Center.
Okay.
Going to look at that.
Downtown,
Any suggestions?
downtown LA is.
Well, but any suggestions you have would be helpful.
Okay.
We'd love that.
Okay, the Ontario DoubleTree, we have meetings there all the time. That's a big, they have conferences and meetings all the time, the Ontario DoubleTree, so just a suggestion.
Hotels usually are very expensive.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's the only thing. They really get you for the meals.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But any other, please let us know.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Fabian? All right, Matt, number 7.
This is just part of the Mobile Source Review Committee, that our board administers their contracts for 2 contract amendments that they approved during the MSRC steering committee. One was to amend the contract for their outreach coordinator, which the board will approve, and the other one was to do dual port EDSC charging as part of their road program.
Are we getting any, that, our big, what was it, 20 or $40 million RFP, or are we getting any feedback from
the
warehouses and stuff? Have we got any proposals?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can find out.
Okay. Well, I can talk to Ray, because the TAC is canceled anyway. Okay.
Okay. So the next items on page 4 are just reports. Is there any questions on 8, 9, or 10?
there was $185,000 penalty, I can't remember if it was one of the refineries or Tamco. Never mind, it's okay.
I don't have that.
That's
today,
okay.
do you?
Don't worry about it.
Any update on the Delta Airlines, what happened over Cudahy?
I don't have the details on that. I know
I know you
Derek
filed a
probably updated
notice,
it.
yeah.
I mean,
I don't think there's anything new on that from our end. We served them with a notice of violation. It takes a little while for that to go through the process.
Okay.
That's the latest on that.
there's a series of public meetings, I think, this week.
Okay.
Derek's at. Okay, so on,
I have
yeah,
one question about the civil penalties. I think we're up to about $10 million this fiscal year already. And I know we budget $4 million. Is that what we do? So they say in excess of $4 million, the 40% goes to the health, 20% goes to the
health
health.
effects fund.
What is the other, does it just go into, does it cover the rest of the budget or does it go?
So we do currently have a $4 million accounted for in the budget. Anything after that is not kind of in our budgeting process. We typically are at least 5, sometimes it goes to 8, 12, depends on what happens. The money goes into the general fund. There have been cases where the board has directed certain really large penalties, things like refineries or Coastal Canyon or others that the board can say, we want to do some projects in the community, but it goes into the general fund.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is that we have a program right now in regard to filter, creating, installing filter systems in some schools. It seems like if you can put 20% of the excess into research, it might be good. Has the staff ever thought about putting some of that excess money into actually having a program where you identify the schools that need it and go to the board and ask them to approve?
There's a
program
long
like
list
that.
of worthy things that penalty money can be used for, so I don't know that we specifically have looked at it as a certain percentage. I think because it varies so much.
Because one of the things is, especially in the area where you have warehouses, is diesel emissions from the trucks, and I think it would be certainly one of the things that I would think we would be really concerned about is the health of these kids, and of course everyone else, but especially the kids who are near these transportation routes, and the impact that these will on.
Were you at the last 617 meeting?
No.
San Bernardino, Muscoa, 17 community, the last meeting, staff had the participants, the steering committee, start prioritizing schools that are near those kinds of facilities. So the idea is, your folks who are working on the 617 stuff, they can have a shovel-ready list of schools, and when money does become available, we know that school goes first because they're closer to
That's good.
the rail yard or
But it would
something
seem
like
like it would be a good thing if the board would support something like that suggested just now.
So Ron, one thing we have been successful in is getting external money for these projects, so not necessarily all our penalty funds,
Well, I
but
think that's good.
EPA's penalty funds and CARB settlements, they're giving us that money to
My
do.
sense is that most of the schools that have been identified are in LA County.
There's been a lot done in Coachella Valley and in San Bernardino. And the AB 617 funding, not the implementation funding we just talked about, but even that incentive funding, some of that can be used for filtration too, if it's in the community emission reduction plan. So there are lots of other funding opportunities for those types of projects that continue to come up, and so whether that's the best use of these other funds or not, it's a board decision, but we're not really short of funding for those types of things at this point, at least in the 617 communities. Okay, so on to page 5. Any questions 11 through 14?
Lots of warehouses. And anything on rules?
Is there any big
I think
changes
I
to the
think
rule calendar?
that can resolve pretty much warehouses in May. railroads in December.
We talked at Mobile Source about the challenges of warehouses in May.
Oh, that's
Still on the
right.
calendar,
That's right.
but yeah.
And I did see at the end of the list, there were like 20 or 30 potential rules, but they were all TBD, so.
Well, every year, we're required in December of every year
Right.
to list every potential rule that we might amend in the coming year.
Gotcha, okay.
So we don't want to tie our hands.
Right.
So we list everything we could think of that could possibly come up.
Because that was like the furnace rule that
Yeah.
you guys
So
did a great job on.
yeah, so we carry that forward every month,
Okay.
that TBD list. That doesn't mean we're going to act on those rules.
Okay, just covering.
Covering our bases, yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
It's more important to look for the new members, especially, Fred knows, look at the ones that are actually calendared, that have a specific month listed. Those are the ones we're trying to get to this year.
Gotcha.
Okay, anything else on 11 through 14? Okay, and then there's committee reports. We have circles on these, which means you don't necessarily have them yet. But anything on 16 through 22 you want to bring up on the committee reports?
Voting district authorization?
Yeah, the latest is, it was potentially a 2-year bill, but no longer. It was pulled from Senate appropriations, so we're
I know you were looking at the
looking
bill
at-
in February, so how's that going?
it's up there Monday and Tuesday of this week. So yeah, we're just talking to members and gauging interest in new authors and.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, so then, that was item 1 on the agenda, and item 2 on the agenda, well, I'll take public comments on item 1. So Harvey, you put in cards for several of the pieces of item 1. And then there's item 2 on the agenda, which is other business. So Harvey, you have 3 minutes for numbers 1 and 2, which probably include all your individual comment cards on all the pieces of item 1. So I have all those cards, but you essentially have 3 minutes for the agenda review and other business. But if you want to wait on the other business and split your time, or I could ask the folks here if they had any other business, and then you can just have 3 minutes for the items 1 and 2. Harvey?
So you're saying the 2 minutes was just for what?
So you can have 3 minutes for the combination of items 1 and 2.
Okay.
So you have the opportunity right now to speak on item 1, but you have 3 minutes for both. I would suggest that see if there's any.
Item 1 is the whole agenda.
Item 1 is the whole agenda. It's not just the whole board agenda. That's one item. But you could start speaking now, and you could speak again on item 2, but you'll have 3 minutes for both, or I could go to the committee now.
We don't know what item 2 is,
It's just other business,
which means anything can come up.
which means any person on this committee can discuss
Anything. Okay,
anything.
well,
So if you get to that, and then you could come up and do both 1 and 2 for 3 minutes, then you don't have to stand up twice. It's up to you. And you get another 3 minutes for public comment.
I guess I'll wait for the other business.
Okay. Is there any other business that anyone wants to bring up that wasn't on the agenda? Seeing that, so Harvey, you have 3 minutes on items 1 and 2.
I'm not really prepared for this as I should be. Hello, my name's Harvey Eder. I'm speaking for myself and for the Public Solar Power Coalition, and for the vast majority of folks that want to see an equitable, just, immediate total solar conversion. To deal with our climate, 6th extinction in the history of the planet that came from us. 150 years ago, we chose our fuel. We knew, and Greta Thunberg's ancestor, Savant Arrhenius, who got the second Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1902 and ran the Nobel Organization until 1927, more than 20 years, okay? In the 1890s, he did studies saying that, you know, carbon dioxide is going up there burning coal and we're increasing the heat in the atmosphere, okay? Thomas Jefferson was in the Thomas Edison in the 1880s was using windmills and stuff for vehicles, electric vehicles, and said that solar is the way to go. That's the power they were choosing. Instead, they went to fossil fuels. They knew that this stuff was happening, and they went and did it anyway. You folks, the district, is doing this now with natural gas vehicles. Still continuing with fossil fuel and going real slow on this other stuff. We've been talking for several years to the manufacturers, and we're going ahead and we're going to sign to manufacture Class 8 trucks and have solar entities to do that in package deals, and to also do that for the fuel cell hydrogen from solar. It was required in state law that a quarter or a third of it had to be solar. It hasn't been followed through. And that it has to be set up like co-ops and partnerships. There has been support of businesses done for the laundry folks, and this should be extended in general for solar businesses and done out of that office as well. In investments, okay, there is in here about deferred payment and stuff. Okay, my understanding is there was a report a week or two ago about a 4% rate of return on investments for this. All of the investments, we have to divest from fossil fuels the way the University of California divested 40 years ago from investments in South Africa. We had 400 people arrested, taken over the administration committee in 77, 78 at UC Santa Cruz, and met with the Secretary of Treasury there, whose daughter was going to school, and got policy, not BYD, against that stuff, but that's a model to divest of fossil fuels and to redivest equitably, and society look at what to do with the extra margin. There is extra margin of benefits from solar, and that's before us. So those are comments for now.
Okay, thank you, Harvey. You can stay there. You can stay there. We're on a public comment, so you have an additional 3 minutes.
Okay. Ditto again. Yesterday we talked for the first time in almost 2 months to the ACLU. We got run out of federal court after being purged by you folks, CARB, and federal EPA. You totally ignored the Solar New Deal and the 16 plan, over 100 exhibits. The last day to file was the 2nd of December. We went there to file a writ of mandate to order all 3 entities to study and evaluate the cost effectiveness equitably and justly of the Solar New Deal as required by law. And to also file a stipulation that the proceedings are stayed until that's done, a stay and a stipulation that we study also the Bernie and Warren's 10 and $16 trillion Green New Deals, and Bloomberg's, who's involved with the UN and the 40 cities. We were purged. We're outraged. We were purged out of federal court, not allowed to file. Not only did we not get our day in court and not get to appeal if we didn't like the decision, we were run out of the clerk's office after being there for over an hour by the federal marshal after calling the FBI under cover of authority and threat of imprisonment until we couldn't go back into the clerk's office again. We didn't get right out. Then after we're on the street, the federal FBI followed us on the street and harassed me when I was making calls telling people what happened. Been going for the last 2 months to the ACLU. You didn't hear from them at all until yesterday. And we're told that we have to file against you within 90 days, local government. I think that goes for Fed as well. So that's you, the state, and the feds. Okay? We've already burned up 60 days, and they say they need another 2 weeks before I'm going to be able to talk to a lawyer there. We have to defensively file against you anyway. Now, we went to you and we tried to get support for this. We don't want to waste time. Department of Energy has a sunshot program. There's stuff about demonstrations and stuff for technologies. 10 years, it's after the moonshot. Solar's cost effective now, all the different technologies. We put the stuff in the record. You guys totally trashed it, purged it, didn't study it. Okay, instead of demonstrations taking years and whatnot, we have everything should be grandfathered in. Department of Energy sunshot program results. and incorporated by reference as part of this, okay? Control technology guidelines and alternative control from 2030, we've been talking about this and going on, it's been purged. It was only when they were talking about these hybrid plants, the part of the MOU, they did one thing about one plant, this is garbage. Stuff's gotta change, and it's gotta change fast. The rate of increase in the state, federal, and the international plans is much greater. Okay, incorporating by the reference, the September issue of National Geographic, the Arctic smelting, that you're getting methane and carbon. They did not say anything about nitrous oxide. That has 300 times the global warming potential, and is an ozone depleter as well.
Thank you, Harvey.
And that has to be on either the agenda next Friday or the Friday after. We've been trying to get it all year.
All right, so.
And it's not included in the UN numbers at all, the Arctic melting, the tundra melting.
With that, we'll adjourn the meeting until the next meeting on February 27th in this room at 11 a.m. With that, thank you very much.
Anything on the March agenda? Anything on the March agenda?
I don't think there's rules, but we're going to be giving, I'm not sure exactly what yet, but some updates on some of the indirect source rules in those activities.
They did, Kobe did.
I used to work for the Salt Springs Bakery.